Hey everyone, I'm Viom here with Fun Robotics Network, here with Team 772 the Golden Dragon, South Carolina State Champion and Inspire World winner. Today they're going to be talking about their Spindexer sorting design and their indexer, here on Behind the Bot.
This video on fun is brought to you by viewers like you and also in partnership with the following. Take on the DECODE season with AndyMark. FTC teams can discover great components such as AndyMark's 3-inch mechanism wheels, programmable servos, sensors that detect distance, color, orientation, and many more solutions for your team. Find this and more at andymark.com and count on AndyMark for the reliable service that teams expect. It isn't too late to order competition apparel for your team at FRC Tees. Founded by First Alumni and offering a free 14-day turnaround with expedited options available, go to frctees.com to see why hundreds of teams are making FRC Tees their first choice for their apparel needs. That's frctees.com.
So guys, starting off with your intake system, it's a very simple design, just like a straight row of grippy Go Build Gecko wheels. Why did you guys decide to go with this design over like a compliant intake or using some sort of like vectors or anything like that?
Yeah, so we saw a lot of FRC robots in past years use rows of rollers since it allows them to just intake really quickly, and we wanted to do something similar to that. We originally used sushi rollers, but they didn't really have enough grip or enough compliance to be able to intake the artifacts effectively. So we switched to these Go Builder rollers, and they squish the wheels just a little bit, and that squish is just enough to allow them to come in really easily. And since there's a couple of bumps on the wheels, that helps it push the artifacts into the intake more, so we haven't really had any issues with intaking multiple at a time.
So with such a simple intake, you guys are bound to run into some sort of issues with jamming. Is that something you guys ran into? And if so, how are you able to like fix them?
Yeah, so that's a big issue we ran into earlier on. So one way we decided to mitigate that is on our indexer, we have 3D printable vector wheels that we found online. Additionally, these interior funnels would allow us to bias one side more than the other. So this one's very short while this one's very long, so it's going to bias either the left or the right side more, and it allows us to get the artifact to get a straight path into the Spindexer.
So moving on to your guys' Spindexer, how exactly were you guys able to have such a quick Spindexer, and like how do you guys make sure you don't have any jamming with moving at such a high speed?
So when we were designing our Spindexer, is designed to cup the artifacts and follow the curvature of the artifacts. So whenever we're spinning it, it'll just make sure it's holding each artifact very securely. And for the speed, we actually use 3 Axon mini servos geared 2-to-1 instead of using a motor, which provides a lot of speed and efficiency whenever we're trying to sort our artifacts.
On the software side, the reason we use these 3 servos instead of a motor is because motors, you have to move them with PID. And what we've noticed is that the PID usually oscillates a lot and is hard to tune. So what we decided instead was to use the servos that have really well-tuned built-in PIDs that will cause our Spindexer to move to the point very quickly. And we pair this with an encoder that we have here so that we always know where the Spindexer is in relation to where it wants to go, so that we can quickly move it and prevent things like jams from happening.
On the software end for our Spindexer, we use a camera to detect the artifacts as they enter our Spindexer. So we run an OpenCV camera pipeline to detect whether whatever's in there is purple or green, and then we know to immediately switch the Spindexer, and this helps with jamming as well because then it makes sure that the balls are entering our Spindexer as fast as possible.
So yeah, really unique stuff for you guys' Spindexer, but how exactly are you guys able to move the artifacts from your Spindexer to your outtake? And why did you guys decide to go with like a very active, very quick indexer versus just having like a simple flipper like a lot of other teams are doing?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the season, when we were designing our robot, we used 2 rows of intake rollers, but we didn't have enough room for an actual indexer. We wanted to do a kicker originally, but we found out that with this design, we can actually shoot very quickly. And that's because our indexer can go up and down, and it acts as both an intake and an indexer. So what it'll do is when we're intaking, as you might have seen earlier, the indexer goes into the up position and the artifact can move past it really easily. We use these 2 vector wheels. Go ahead and And it works really well for making sure they all get in there very quickly. But when we want to shoot, the indexer goes into the down position, and then the Spindexer rotates, which fires each artifact as it moves past the indexer. And since the indexer is powered by the intake, we're running at about 2000 RPM, so it kind of acts as a flywheel to a flywheel, which gives us very quick speeds and speeds that are comparable to that of linear robots.
So these lights you guys have going on back here, what exactly do they mean? I noticed while you guys were intaking those artifacts, you have these lights back here. What do they represent?
So, as I mentioned earlier, because we're able to use the camera, we know exactly how many balls are inside our Spindexer. And so we're able to show our drivers whether the Spindexer is full or empty. So whenever it's green, they know that they can shoot, they can just start shooting immediately.
Such a unique design. Congratulations for making such probably very creative design. Up next for your guys' outtake and turret system, you guys are running a Lazy Susan bearing. Why did you guys decide to use this over a bearing stack or an X contact bearing?
Yeah, so we really want a simplicity with this robot, of specific mechanisms, because our more complex mechanisms, like our indexer, we knew would take a lot of work. So for parts that didn't need to be as complex, we went with that. So this is just an AndyMark Robits turntable bearing. It was super easy to install and to use, and we haven't had any issues with it throughout the season. It is a little bit heavier than using something like a turret or a bearing stack or an X contact bearing. But what's good is that it's super smooth because it's all greased up on the inside before we actually buy it, and we don't have to worry about maintenance at all since it's all already done.
So for your actual flywheel shooter system, what is it powered by? What's the weighting? How are y'all? Why did you guys decide to go with the designs that you did?
So yeah, our flywheel is powered by a GoBuilda 6000 RPM motor belted 1-to-1, using a GT3 belt, I believe, a GT2 belt, and we're using this AndyMark flywheel, AndyMark stealth wheel. That's it's very hard rubber. Originally we had this very soft rubber AndyMark wheel, but we've swapped it out for something a little bit more hard because we found it to be more consistent. And on our hood, we've actually lined it with aluminum tape to help reduce backspin, as backspin is proven to be a very big issue whenever we're trying to shoot artifacts really quickly, and it drops our speed sometimes. So having a very smooth surface to the artifacts to slide off of is very efficient.
How are you guys running your goal tracking, and how are you guys helping your robot understand with velocity or hood angle? What are you guys all running to get that all accurate?
So for everything that has to do with calculating our robot's position relative to the goal, we use our limelight camera here at the front, and then we also use the odometry pods on our robot along with our pinpoint computer. Originally, at the beginning of the season, we used our pinpoint computer to map out the position of the robot relative to the goal. But what we noticed was that this flywheel has a lot of vibrations when it's spinning quickly, and it'll cause the GoBuilda pinpoint to resonate and then shift to the position of the robot based off of those vibrations. So to correct for those errors coming out of the vibrations, we added the limelight camera here to the front, and this limelight camera is able to look at our April tag. And this will get an entirely new position of the robot relative to the April tag. We then use a filter called a complementary filter to mesh both the readings from the camera and from the odometry to get the most accurate idea of where our robot is while eliminating that drift that we get from the odometry. We also use our camera to fine-tune our angle of the turret next to the goal so that we can shoot more accurately.
So for your autonomous, what kind of pathing are you guys using, and just what's all going into that? So what is your auto? What are your overall scores, and how are you running it?
So for our library, this season we decided to abandon libraries like PagerPathing or Roadrunner, and we swapped to our own custom pathing library called Dragon Pather. The reason why we did this was because we wanted something that was an extremely simple library to use that didn't have all the eloquencies of libraries like PagerPathing or Roadrunner. So we made our library really short. It's 200 lines, one function that just tells the robot to go to a position. And because of that, we're able to make really simple but competitive autos that can make the robot move a little bit. That makes it move really quickly.
So our autonomous typically scores 12 balls, and at the very end, they're all sorted. So we're able to use our limelight to detect the April tag, the obelisk April tag during our autonomous period, and we store that into our code, and then we actually run, we use some math to figure out where the optimal starting point for our Spindexer is in order to start spinning as fast as possible and shoot all 3 balls sorted in linear speed. And this lets us get a really competitive 12 ball while also sorting at the same time.
Yeah, that's definitely something really complicated. Wow, it's really impressive that you guys were able to make your own pathing library this season. For Endgame, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you running a special sort of park, a kickstand? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so we wanted to make sure that we could get a double park, and since our robot is very wide, we're basically 18 by 18 inches, so we knew that it would be very difficult for other robots to fit in the parking space with us. And since at our qualifying event for our states, we noticed that the requirement for the points is 21, so that's moving off the line and also having a full park and a partial park. So what we did is we added a kickstand down below, and it just flips up at the very end of the match. We use 2 Axon Max servos, and we gear it 1 to 4, so we have a lot of torque on it, and it can lift our entire robot really easily, even with a low battery. And to prevent against these servos slipping, once we turn the robot off, we have a ratchet that we bought online, and it just makes sure that the park doesn't move too much, and we can just stay at a set position.
Can you guys like show like the park just like
Yeah.
being like activated?
Yep. So we would put it up like this in the up position, and then the robot just kind of sits to the side a little bit. So we're able to go super far to the right part of the base zone, and then our partners can just move in and get a partial park, and that allows us to get the base ranking point.
Wow, such an awesome robot, you guys. Thank you so much for giving me the time to interview you guys. Once again, I'm Viom from Fun Robotics Network here with Team 772. Best of luck for you guys at the World Championship, and thank you all for watching.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to stay up to date on future fun videos. It isn't too late to order competition apparel for your team at FRC Tees. Founded by First Alumni and offering a free 14-day turnaround with expedited options available, go to frctees.com to see why hundreds of teams are making FRC Tees their first choice for their apparel needs. That's frctees.com. Take on the DECODE season with AndyMark. FTC teams can discover great components such as AndyMark's 3-inch Mecanum wheels, programmable servos, sensors that detect distance, color, orientation, and many more solutions for your team. Find this and more at AndyMark.com and count on AndyMark for the reliable service that teams expect.